Welcome to the Forged in Fire podcast. Meet your hosts, Nate Farmer Eden, co-founder and CEO of Eden Capital, dedicated to achieving financial independence for his community, and Cole Farrell, founder and CEO of Vulcan Capital, a real estate expert with a passion for empowering others through education. Stay tuned for another episode right here on Forged in Fire.
Welcome back, everybody, to another exciting episode of Forged in Fire. I am your co-host, Nate Farmer Eden. Let me introduce Cole. Come on stage, brother. How we doing?
Nate, what's going on, man? How are you doing today?
Man, I'm a little under the weather, but I'm still trying to keep morale high. I'm super excited because we're like one day away from this big launch. Dude, I don't know. I'm ecstatic. How you feeling?
Super excited. I'm amped up as well. You know, you might feel a little better if you didn't wake up at 3:30 a.m. every day.
I don't know. I think that's what's really keeping me going. Dude, I had to miss the gym today. I can't even remember the last time I had to miss the gym on a Tuesday, bro. I'm so mad.
I love it. I love it. Dude, I'm excited for this this big event we got going on. For anybody that's not familiar, Nate and I are super passionate about new investors, people that are looking to get in real estate, people that might not understand real estate, but they're like, hey, that sounds great, because we've run our whole careers off this and we see how powerful it is. So not only are we building our own portfolios, of course, but we're trying to help others get started. So if you go to forgereiacademy.com/webinar, again, reiacademy.com/webinar. We're going to have events on there and it'd be great for you to come by. So with that being said, let's go through some housekeeping, right? First, please leave us a rating and review. We want to keep growing. We want to educate more people on this. Second, subscribe, as always. And third, please buckle up, strap down, whatever you want to call it, because as always, it's going to be a fun time.
It's going to be a hell of a ride, dude. I'm so excited, man. We've got our dear friend Alison, who is the founder and CEO of Domino Bookkeeping, here to hang with us today. Alison, how are we doing?
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure is ours. So please, tell us a little bit about yourself. What got you here? What brought you here?
Sure. My name's Alison Carney, and I founded Domino Bookkeeping about three and a half years ago. Prior to starting my own firm, I, got some degrees. I have a bachelor's in psychology, did that whole thing for a minute, got my MBA, got my master's in accounting, decided not to become a CPA, did about 5-6 years in audit, did some corporate accounting, and then I left it all behind to be a stay-at-home mom. So that was a big change. And after I had my second, by the time my youngest was 11 months old, I started Domino Bookkeeping, just because I was ready to kind of get back out there and have something of my own. And I really didn't want to go back to being a W-2 employee. I wanted to be able to be flexible and do my own thing.
Awesome. So dig in more. So you started as a kind of corporate, you said, you ended up going stay-at-home mom, and then you ended up doing your own thing. So dive in more, like, why do your own thing? Was there something that pulled you to it? I'm guessing flexibility, but tell me more about just kind of like the vision here.
Yeah, I didn't realize what the vision was when it was happening, but hindsight's 2020. So looking back, some people are really cut out to be stay-at-home parents and like that's their thing. I am not that person. However, I also am a very particular person. So of course I'm the only one who can raise my babies the right way. So it's like catch-22. So really, I did not want to go back to having someone tell me to come sit at a desk from 9 to 5. And God forbid, if I finish my work at 4, I'm not allowed to go home. And there's just so many corporate rules that just I was that work from home girly before it was a thing. So that really kind of helped. Growing up, I had 2 very hardworking parents. They worked full-time jobs, so I didn't have a parent home like, we did before and aftercare. And so I just kind of knew that I wanted to be there when my kids got off the school bus type thing. That's really kind of what pushed me to do it. And I'm paying all these student loans for these master's degrees. So I was like, I should probably do something. And I love helping people. And so starting my own bookkeeping firm for small businesses really seemed like the way to go.
I love that 1,000%, especially what you just said at the very end about being able to help and give back. It resonates deep with Cole and myself, which is why we do the whole coaching, the mentoring thing. But to dive in just a little bit deeper, and you can take this to whatever degree with Domino Bookkeeping, but tell us about some of the challenges and struggles, the trials and tribulations from doing the whole stay-at-home mom thing to jumping right back in after taking all that time off. And then what are some of the struggles that you're going with like today as well?
Sure. And I mean, it's changed so much so it was like July 2021 when I started. And again, I had an 11-month-old and a 2-year-old, 2 boys, and like it was just utter chaos. So I specifically was starting my business. I knew I wanted to do it. I got my first client pretty quickly, but I actively did not market my business. I tried to do a lot of subcontracting. From the get-go, I knew that I needed to be careful with how I grew the business. When COVID hit and the world shut down, my oldest was 18 months. And I actually had my youngest during COVID, July 2020. So when that older kid went to preschool for the first time, you know who got their very first ear infection? So I didn't want to have a roster of clients that like, if I'm like sick and in the weeds with my kids, like I didn't want to have that responsibility of these extra clients. So I really kind of got my feet wet with subcontracting for CPAs who aren't interested in the bookkeeping work anyway. So I think the main challenge starting my business was I was trying to start it at a time where I was so needed as mom first. And I still hold that, that's still the case today. My boys are 4 and 6, so they're not as needy, but they're very needy in different ways. But they're in school a little bit now. And so about a year ago, I really started trying to scale the business, do some marketing, do all of those things. As soon as I got my first couple clients, I kind of stopped working on like the business side and just focused on my clients and kind of shifting back into all of those things. And I know bookkeeping and accounting and audit, and that's my jam, and that's what I'm good at. And when you become an entrepreneur, you have to know marketing and sales and networking and all of the things. And so you quickly learn like what you're good at and what you're not good at. And as soon as you can afford to do so, you got to outsource.
Oh, it's so good. And there's so much I want to dig into there. So first, I want to dial back just to what you said earlier, which I love that you mentioned some people are kind of built for different things. And I like that you went into that you wanted to be the stay-at-home, but you still want to kind of create something bigger. And I think it's neat because a lot of people that we talk to have that at home. They want to be with their kids. They want to get them off the school bus. They want the flexibility, but they don't always know like how to start, or they're nervous. And so it's cool to hear your story of you saying, hey, I did it. And I was cognizant of kind of the different challenges, and I went in like intentionally. And I think that's really neat that you kind of went in with like, okay, let's start small, let's grow it, but let's not go this crazy corporate massive entrepreneur, hire 10 people and just, devote your life to it. There's balance there. And I think a lot of people just think it's all or nothing, and it's not, right? So another thing I want to touch on is you talked about like working on your business versus working in your business. And that's very delicate. Like you mentioned, you're good at your thing that you do. So you do the bookkeeping yourself, but you still have to work on your business. And like you said, go back into marketing, go back into growth, and kind of improve your systems. So how do you focus now? And do you have a team? And if not, like, how do you devote your time to like working in versus working on?
Yeah, so here in year 3/4, I did earlier this year, about 6 months ago, I made my first hires. And yesterday I onboarded my first senior bookkeeper. So to date, it's all been admin and junior level. So I'm very much still in all of the client work. But onboarding this new senior person is allowing me to, once I get her onboarded and up to speed, now I can start to focus on some other areas. So that is something that when it was just me, it became very overwhelming and very difficult. And I just, stopped doing it. I just didn't do marketing because I don't know what I'm doing. And so it's just kind of being okay with being where you're at, I guess.
So to sort of dive in a little bit deeper on that, and let's take it back just a bit. When you initially got started and you didn't want to do much marketing because you kind of had an idea of who your client was going to be, and then speed up 3 years, now that we're 3 years in, do you focus on a particular, and I don't know much about bookkeeping, but I don't know if you call it like a market or if you target like audience, like for instance would be, do you focus only on like investors? Do you focus on only folks that are running entrepreneur business sides? Like how does that all look? And now that you're starting to expand and your company's growing, congratulations, hats off to you. Are you going to open that up to more demographic, or what's it going to look like?
Yeah, so I'm trying to actually close the demographic to just for scalability purposes and really kind of focusing on the areas that were really good. You know, accounting and bookkeeping across the board, at the end of the day, it's all the same. But every industry has their own nuances. You have restaurants who have all of these things going on. You have a lot of e-commerce who you have all these crazy sales reports. You have, you know, inventory stuff going on. And my industry that I niche in is real estate. I love real estate accounting, particularly with investors. Most investors don't know that if you're flipping a home, the accounting is different than if you are buying and holding. So just being able to help real estate investors kind of come in and clean up their books, be able to see property by property, what is doing well, what isn't. You know, your financials are the backbone of your business. They're everything. And if you don't know how to read your financial statements, or if you just don't have them, A, you're not going to get the loans you need, and B, you're not going to make sound financial decisions to grow your business, because you could be thinking that this property that you recently had to like buy a new roof for. So you're like, in your head, you're like, man, this property is sucking a lot of money. But if you look back at your P&L, it's actually doing really well. Like, it's just having the backup to kind of support your gut.
You were talking my lingo. I'm getting all excited over here because, like, I love numbers. I could sit here and talk P&Ls and budgets all day, and I would put everybody to sleep, and I would be like so excited. But what's so important is, like you said, it's all about like, are we making money? Or are we losing money? And so many people we talk to, especially people starting out in real estate, say, I don't know. And I'm always just speechless. I'm like, what do you mean you don't know? Aren't you running financials every week or every month or all the time? And they're like, no, I've never done that. And I'm like, I'm shocked you're even still in business. Like, you're lucky. So it's crazy. So I love talking to anybody that is so adamant about this stuff. And obviously that's your world. So one other thing too, I always find it funny, like you said, and it's no harm to the people that don't know, but it's important. If somebody flips their first house, they assume it's going to shake out like a long term, and then they get that tax bill and it's like, oh, sorry, friend, like, it doesn't work like that. But two things. One, explain the difference and kind of how they work together, bookkeeping versus accounting, and how that goes. And two, I want to hear your kind of experience for getting clients, because a lot of people in whatever business or industry struggle with that piece specifically. So how did you find your first client, and then how did you scale up a couple clients?
Sure. So everyone wants to think that accounting / bookkeeping, all of it is very black and white. And the truth of the matter is, it is a very gray area. So if you think of the full accounting cycle, accounting is all of it. It's all of the money in, all of the money out, all of the reports, etc. Bookkeeping is just kind of like that first layer. It's the entry level. It's all of your transactions, every penny coming in and every penny coming out, getting organized onto your financials. So you have your bookkeeping, and then you have your accounting up here. This is where you're getting more into, diving into the financials, doing any necessary journal entries to record your depreciation from the tax return, etc. So it's just kind of like a step up. But a lot of people do get confused. They think that if you're an accountant, they'll come and ask me tax questions. I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm not a tax, know nothing about tax. I kind of liken it to attorneys and doctors, not that, we're nowhere near that, but people think, oh, I broke my toe, I need to go see a doctor. You're a doctor. They don't, oh, I'm a heart surgeon. Like, I don't know anything about broken feet. Same with attorneys. If you're hurt and you go to, an attorney, like, it's just kind of understanding how it all works. But it's definitely interesting to explain. I'm often trying to explain to people what the difference is between how they all work. When it comes to getting clients, I'll have to get back to you on the scaling part because I'm still working on it. But I kind of lucked out with my very first client. She found me on my QuickBooks Pro Advisor profile. So if you're using QuickBooks, you can go in and search for someone by zip code. And she found me there, reached out. And I have heard from day one that the second you throw up an out of office, everyone comes banging on your door. I was actually on a vacation in the Bahamas when I got the email from my first client. And I'm like, and I was just so excited, but I was like, I'm in the Bahamas. Like, what do I do? But it ended up all working out. And really, I think I was fortunate over the summer to be able to do a lot of in-person networking. And I have never been able to do that before because of my kids and their schedule. It just did not align. And I had the opportunity to do that this summer. And word of mouth is just really phenomenal. Referrals, like, it's, no joke when people always say, your best gift to me is a referral, or, whatever that cliche saying is. It's cliche for a reason. So I get a lot through referrals. People still find me through my Pro Advisor profile. And then I have launched a marketing situation on social media too.
I love this. So many different levels. Congratulations. And I'm very upset that I was not able to go to the Bahamas as well. Thanks for the invite. My goodness. But that is awesome. Congratulations on getting that. So what does it look like in terms of like educational standpoint, especially for folks that don't yet understand or grasp the difference between bookkeeping and accountant? And then when you try to onboard somebody or hiring a new client, how do you educate them to keep them up to speed on everything that you're doing on the back end? How does that look?
So you're right. A lot of people have no idea what it is they're signing. They're like, I need someone to do my books. I'm told I need a bookkeeper. So there's a lot of education around it. I'm very big on communication and understanding, helping people understand the full picture. I can speak accounting jargon all day long, but that might not resonate with a large amount of people. So it's really just kind of meeting them at their level, using terms that they understand, and going from there when it comes to the education piece. And you're right. They, the back end of it, trying to explain to people what all is going on. Sometimes I find that if I say less, it's almost easier. They just then get their beautiful books at the end of it.
Love it. Do you have any stories of like clients you worked with, or just things that you've seen or kind of worked, I guess you personally, where things when you started were definitely not peachy and maybe on the rocks, and you kind of helped turn it around? And if that's the case in any scenario, what do you see like in people's books that they're doing wrong? If someone's listening to this and going like, okay, I either have a bookkeeper or I don't have a bookkeeper, but things aren't working, like what are things they should be looking at, and kind of however you want to take that?
Sure. So I have one story, and it didn't end up working out to my advantage, but I think it really speaks to real estate investors in general and why it's important to have your financials set up the right way. I started working with someone a couple years ago, and they were the classic, I just buy or sell a home based on how I'm feeling. And I got them all set up in QuickBooks. We, we're tracking everything by property. They really, to do the work well, you need your closing statements, any mortgage loans and all of those statements, and refinances, et cetera, really kind of tracking all of that money. They were telling me, oh yeah, we would, get sometimes rent income would come in cash and then we would just go spend it somewhere. And I'm like, okay, well, then you can't accurately track all that stuff. The commingling of personal and business expenses, like your bookkeeper is going to harp on you for a reason. That's really important. The whole point of having an LLC is for liability protection. And if you're commingling your funds like that, lawyers are going to find a loophole by you using your personal expenses. Now, it's not the end of the world if it's an accident, but that ongoing continuous use is a big issue that I see. They will just categorize their personal transactions and say, oh, it's a business expense. And I'm like, I'm sorry, your haircut is not a business expense. I don't care if you're on podcasts all day and you want to look pretty. It's just not. It's a basic need. So I see that a lot. But going back to this, this client who made those decisions without any financials, I got him all set up this way. He was really happy. We had talks about moving him forward into the next year. And he's like, I'm ready to sign that contract. And then I sent it over and a couple weeks went by and I'm like, hey, you haven't signed your contract. What's going on? He's like, I'm sorry, I can't afford you now. I got saddled with a bunch of property tax bills that I wasn't expecting. And I'm like, as a real estate investor, you should probably know that every December you need to, at least in my state, it works, differently in different states. Every December you are going to pay property taxes for the properties that you own. And the fact, it's just like, that is the exact reason why he needed me, was for that reason. And so I was like, okay, at this point, I'm just going to have to cut you loose. And if you decide to change your mind, you can come back, you know how to find me. But there's been plenty of clients that I've had where, my very first client, her books were an absolute mess. She's a real estate broker. So she wasn't doing investing, but she had a brokerage and she had all sorts of business loans, all sorts of other things going on. Her taxes were behind. She owed all this stuff. So we came in, cleaned it up. She ended up selling a building that she owned and was able to wipe out all of her debt. And now she is able to kind of just focus on what matters for her. And so that's really kind of the piece of it. If people come to me with negative net income and they're like, what went wrong? And we're really just diving into that. And people think, to go to your other questions, people think that, oh, it's just bookkeeping. We can just drop the things in the buckets and it's fine. But if you're taking, let's say, your QuickBooks subscription, and 1 month you're going to put it to accounting fees, and then another month you put it to dues and subscriptions, and there's no sort of, method to the madness, you have financials, and for taxes purposes, yeah, sure, that'll be fine. It's an expense at the end of the day. It's treated the same. However, when you're trying to budget and plan and make goals for the future, you're not going to know what's where and what's what. And then I think one of the more important pieces is anytime you pay taxes for your business or you pay yourself that's not from payroll, that doesn't go on your P&L. It goes on your balance sheet. And that's a big issue that can very much affect your tax return once you're because your P&L is what you get taxed on and your balance sheet is not. So putting the money in the right place is so important.
So many gems. Those that are listening, rewind, play that whole thing all the way back.
I know that was a lot. I'm sorry.
No, it was perfect. It was great information. And it made me think of another question. Before we get into our next segment, help me understand, at what point should an investor think about hiring a bookkeeper or accountant? Like, do you start having the conversations before you even buy your first investment? Or is it after your portfolio's at, 5 units or better? Or what would you recommend? How would you talk to an investor?
It's really up to the individual. I have spoken to quite a few people. I had a call just last week. He said, I'm brand new. I'm closing on my first property in 30 days. And I just want to make sure that I am doing all of the things right from the beginning. And in my mind, that is the best way. However, that person also, if they are wanting to cash flow and outsource, they don't necessarily have that in their business. They would have to fund into that from another business or from a personal expense. So I will chat with them, and I'm working on, as I get more team members onboarded to kind of get out of the client work, I have this goal of creating kind of a startup course for new real estate investors where it would be just a one-time. I will set up their QuickBooks, give them a customized chart of accounts, and I even have ideas of recording short, simple videos of this is how you link a bank account, and this is how you split your mortgage and interest, and put it in the right place, just so if they can't afford to outsource yet, they at least have the skeletal structure, and then they have my information when they are ready to move forward. But ideally, and it's not about the number of doors or properties, it's really kind of about at what point are you comfortable outsourcing? Because if it's not, like for me, marketing's not my thing. So if bookkeeping, accounting is not your thing, you want to outsource it as soon as possible. But that looks different for everyone.
That's awesome. And I guess it also factors into like what's somebody's time worth. Like if somebody's starting and they're full-time real estate and they have nothing else to do, it might be in their best interest to learn this and do this themselves because of where they're at. But if somebody's a doctor making excessive amounts of money and they're buying their properties, their time is probably best not spent learning bookkeeping. They should be using you, who's the expert at this, and facilitating that. So I guess it kind of depends, like you said, on who is where in their journey. My last question for you, for now at least, is what are the most important things that you track when you're bookkeeping, specifically for real estate investors? Like, are there a couple items that are the most important that you focus on?
Yeah, so I really am focusing on buy property is the key. But I'm kind of just focusing on everything that's happening around each property. So something for tax purposes that we need to pay attention to is the property under construction or in service, because if it's under construction, you don't want to put all, like you're still paying insurance and property taxes, and you're obviously putting money into the rehab. So those are all like, you have your rehab costs and then you have holding costs, and you want to keep that separate. But then once you're in service, then you can start itemizing. I actually set up chart of accounts to kind of follow the tax return. And so we track, property insurance, property tax, property insurance, or interest, mortgage interest. All those things are tracked separately and by property. And then those rehabs are going to capitalize and depreciate on the balance sheet. So if you have like a big rehab you're doing, we want to keep that separate. But if we're just mowing the lawn and, fixing an outlet, just basic repairs and maintenance stuff, that's going to go somewhere else. So it's really just all of those little details by each property.
Love it.
So good. Before we go into the next segment, last question. Again, doesn't matter. So do you only work with people inside of your state, or does it matter where you are geographically, or how does that look? And especially when it comes to like tax codes and all extra fun stuff.
Yeah, so I don't do tax. So I am not bound by anything like that. So I can work with anyone in the United States. I could probably take clients, in Canada or somewhere else, but the rules and regulations are just different, and I'm not interested in learning them. I would rather spend my time, I don't do tax, but I'd rather stay up to date on real estate tax laws that are ever changing, just because that affects me and my clients more. But I have, I think my furthest away client for me is in Hawaii. So I've got, we're across the map in at least the US.
That's awesome. So if someone's looking for a bookkeeper, not bound by geography, which is good to know. Nate, I think it's time.
I believe so. I think so. I think Alison's ready. It's exciting.
All right, Alison, we're going to ask you the same questions, kind of catered to you, but we're going to ask them to you, and we ask them to every guest, and we're going to do our best not to interrupt, and we always fail, but we're going to do our best.
Okay. We try so hard.
All right, what separates top performing entrepreneurs and/or investors from the rest?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you for some reason.
Oh, all right, let's try that again. What separates top performing entrepreneurs and/or investors from the rest of the crowd?
I think showing up authentically as yourself. You're not going to get very far if you are trying to be something that you're not. Your clients are going to end up seeing right through that, and they're going to especially in my industry, we're kind of, if you're going to show me your financials, you're going to trust me a little bit. And I always show up very authentically, like kind of what you see is what you get. And I think that is something that really, really sets us apart.
So good.
I love that. What's a daily habit that's contributed to your success?
More recently, I have been, it's tough being an entrepreneur, keeping all of that stuff going, and then a mom to 2 young kids, and everyone, whether you're a parent or not, everyone has those things, and they're like, life likes to life on you. And so one of the things I have been trying to work on more recently is just giving myself grace. If my kids don't have school that day, I need to kind of plan my schedule around not working, because I would, bring my laptop down into the room they're playing with, like I was going to be able to do both. And you just can't show up fully in both roles. So really just kind of giving yourself grace and knowing that it's all going to turn out okay. And that's really kind of helped with my mental capacity.
That's so powerful. I really, really like that. What is a piece of advice that you'd give to yourself if you were starting again?
That was my answer. Stop, take a breath. It's gonna be okay. Like,
awesome.
That's about as succinct as I can be, I guess.
Love it. What is your favorite business book?
Well, I really enjoy Profit First.
Shocker.
I know. Big surprise over here. I actually also enjoy Profit First for real estate investors, because there is a special edition just for real estate investors.
I've heard that's a game changer. I have not read the real estate investor specific one, but I have read the other one.
Yeah. And the thing to know about it is you don't have to focus or follow by every detail of the book. You can really be flexible. It's just as long as you're doing something along those lines.
What is your favorite part of running your own business or firm?
I think, the excitement of the first time that you do something, the first time that you sign a client, like it's just so new and exciting. You're like, wow, I did that by myself. Like, that's so cool. Or hiring your first employee, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm a boss. Like, cool. Being a guest on a podcast, like, holy cow, why do people want to talk to little old me? Like, that's so cool. Like, it's just, especially spending the last several years as a stay-at-home mom, like just being able to like look back and see what you've created is just the coolest.
Awesome.
What is something new that you've implemented that's helped drive your success?
Something new. Gosh, I feel like everything is new in the last 6 months. When I didn't have a team, everything lived up here, and I've spent the last 6 months kind of getting it out of my head. But I think really the delegation and the task management system that I've implemented. We use Asana so we can assign tasks and due dates, and so we know like who's where at what time, and that's really kind of help us get by as we cobble together better things for the future to continue growing.
Awesome. You survived.
You made it through the hot seat. Fire round.
It was awesome. I mean, it's really cool to hear your journey, and I can't stress enough. Like, I love talking to someone that's in the stage that you're in, that started from zero, made the transition, and you're clearly so passionate about what you do. But I love the balance that you're putting on life, and I love the emphasis that you're putting on showing up for your family, but also like still running the show and the business. So it's really cool to hear this. And I think a lot of people listening and starting their own show are going to really like vibe with you and kind of the things that you're putting in place. And again, you're doing all the right things. And it's so nice to hear somebody that's just like obviously on track to explode if you choose that route. So very, very cool. I have 2 final questions for you. 1, any final advice? And 2, where can people find you?
Oh gosh, final advice. If you are ready to find a bookkeeper, don't be afraid. Don't be embarrassed. People can be, again, like I said earlier, financials are kind of that backbone. They're the heart and soul of your business. They're also very personal. They're business expenses, but that's very personal. So when you are looking for a bookkeeper or an accountant, don't be embarrassed. Don't, it'll all be okay. And we have seen worse. We have always seen worse. As for where to find me, I am on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn. I think we are at Domino Bookkeeping on all of those platforms. You can email us at hello@dominobookkeeping.com if you want to just say hi, or schedule if you go to my website, that's dominobookkeeping.com. There's even a link where you can kind of schedule a free 15-minute call just to see, if we might be a good fit for working together.
Alison, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for your third podcast. I never would have guessed. You knocked it out of the park. A home run, grand slam. It has been an honor, a pleasure, and a privilege to have you on Forge and Fire. Great job. We're looking forward to bringing you back on in the next couple of seasons to be able to see the progression from just bringing on your first couple of hires to wherever you are going to go next. And it's going to be exciting. For those that are out there listening, get home safe. Thank you so much for tuning in. We're looking forward to seeing you on the next episode of Forge and Fire. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Peace.